On this episode, we discuss some of the more common reasons that expats leave Thailand and wonder, will our time come too?
So, if you've been here a while and are wondering how long your Bangkok run will end up being, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
How's it going, eh? Welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who followed a friend to Thailand in 2001 and never left, despite the great white north calling me back like a frozen, ghostly soulmate.
Ooh, that's kind of spooky. And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 19 years ago, almost. Fell in love with rubbing shoulders with sweaty backpackers on Khao San Road and never left.
Nice.
So we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Zach Smith, who supports us at the show shoutout level. Stick around after we're done talking about why expats leave Thailand to hear why Zach, who recently moved to Bangkok, should switch careers from real estate to motivational speaker in order to help lazy expats like us. For more info on how you can become a patron, just head to the support page on bangkokpodcast.com. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about current events in Thailand and whatever else comes into our minds. We just finished recording this week's bonus show and we chatted about Khao San Road's upcoming upgrade, the rage surrounding the bagpacker issue, and how Bangkok could use a few more buskers.
Yeah, I always enjoy stopping along the street and watching some talented musician play a song. Why don't we have more of that in Bangkok? I think it's a great idea.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we jump into it, I just want to give our listeners, I want to give you all a quick window into the life of a podcaster here and the relationship we have with our listeners. You know, we put ourselves out there every week and we get a lot of feedback, some emails, Facebook messages, tweets and such. Almost all of them are very helpful. But it's just funny the different types of messages we get. And I'm going to read a quick flurry of messages that I got the other day from our buddy Scott, who I've mentioned on the show before. I often refer to him as the corrections department of the Bangkok Podcast. And he sent a helpful message about last week's episode where one question I posed to Ed said that Bangkok was a province and a city at the same time. So it's just funny. I wake up in the morning and I see this message from Scott. Couple comments from the corrections department. Bangkok is not a province. When Ed asked, is Bangkok a province as well? You said, I think so, yes. It's not, for a few reasons. Every province has subdivisions or ampur, where in Bangkok it's subdivided into khet. There are 50 khet. In a province, one of the ampurs is called Muang, which is the capital ampur of that province. In all provinces, there are cities, but Bangkok is a city. In the Muang ampur of the province is a city with the same name as the province. This is the capital city of the province. In all provinces, the capital city is the largest and most populous of the cities in the province, with one exception, Songkhla City in Ampur Muang of Songkhla, in the administrative center of the province, but the largest city in Songkhla province is Hat Yai. The administrative capital of the province of Bangkok is Bangkok. The city is the whole area. There are no cities in Bangkok, just the 50 khet. So, it might sound pedantic to say that Bangkok is not a province. It really isn't at all anything like a province.
Wow.
There you go. So that's the kind of feedback that we get from time to time.
Wow. So your buddy is quite detailed. And I would say it is pedantic, but it's interesting. I didn't really know that.
That's right. It's pedantic, but it's not wrong. And that's the thing. I appreciate all this advice we get from our listeners. And sometimes we make mistakes on the air. But few of our listeners have the will to write in with such detailed critiques, but it's all appreciated because putting out a show every week is a lot of work, and sometimes we make mistakes when we're talking off the hip. So yeah, thanks, Scott. I look forward to more submissions from the corrections department to keep us on the straight and narrow. All right, well, on this episode, Ed and I wanted to get into a topic that everyone who's been here for any short amount of time has experienced: friends who leave Thailand and go back home. And whether it's for school or work or health reasons or just plain getting sick of Bangkok, it's bound to happen to most people eventually. So let's discuss why expats leave, when the right time to bail is, and what it says about expat life in Thailand. So what are your thoughts on this, Ed?
Well, I think we should clarify so our listeners don't panic or anything. Neither Greg nor I is actually contemplating leaving Thailand soon.
No.
So don't panic. So listeners, don't panic. We're going to be here for you.
That's right.
But Greg and I, having been here so long, we've just seen a lot of people come and go over the years.
Yes.
And obviously we're still here. You and I do have other friends who've actually been here longer than we have. So we're not the only long timers. But obviously most people don't stay as long as we do. And so just almost by definition, most people leave. And so we want to talk about why people leave. What is it that causes them to leave? And then, I don't know, maybe we could give some help to expats out there who may be trying to figure out if they should stay, if they should go. Should I stay or should I go? Isn't that isn't that like a Clash song?
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah, and I think the I've said before, I think the turnover rate for most expats in Bangkok is about 4 years. I say the average number of years that people stay before they leave is about 4 years, because I think that 5-year mark is like a psychological thing. Like if you pass that, you're like, oh shit, I've been here 5 years. Like
interesting. Do you think you really think it's 4 years? I really feel like it's shorter than 4. You think you think the average is 4?
I would say the average is 4. Yeah, I mean, maybe
it's kind of weird. In a way, it's a little bit of a weird math problem, because you get a bunch of people who are just permanent. So you get people who've been here 20, 30, 40 years. So that probably pulls the average up. It's interesting because I see a fair amount of people come for, I mean, a year is fairly common. That's kind of the logical thing. People come for a year or 1 or 2 years. I don't know. I kind of feel like half the people are gone by 2 years. You don't think so?
I think it's getting a bit longer than that. I mean, there are a ton of people who leave after 1 or 2 years, but I feel like over the past 5 or 7 years, I've met a greater number of people who have been here for 3 or 4 or 5 years, more than I used to meet. But it's funny how the longer you're here, like you and me now are like grandfathered in, almost literally. We're like the old dudes with all of our friends in the old age home have died, but we're still sitting here like, yeah, we're still here.
Well, the good news is we actually know several people who've been here longer than us. Canadian buddies and people who've been here longer than us. So, in our group, we're not even the longest people who've been here, which is a good thing.
But you've been here longer than me, Grandpa. So slightly,
maybe a year, 10 months, something like that.
I'm the Nong of the Bangkok podcast.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, first off, I think we should clarify that there are a bunch of expats who are on either contracts or they're on some kind of time limited job. So I've known a bunch of like NGO people or UN people or some people who've worked at the embassy, those kind of people. And I think it's true of some corporate people as well. They're on like a 3-year stint. So I think obviously there's no mystery with those people, because a lot of those people, they have no choice and they don't really have a way to stay. I think they would probably have to like quit their job or make a major life change. So I do know a bunch of people that they get cycled into Thailand for 2, 3, or I guess some State Department people I think stay for like 5 years. So you do have that type of expat. So we're not really talking about those types of expats. We're talking about people who have discretion, like people who could stay, but they leave. But
they've made a decision like, okay, it's time to go, and my reason is blank.
Okay, so here's my question to you, Greg. So I'm curious what you think about this. I'm curious, based on the people you know, have more of them left because of like specific distaste for Thailand or Bangkok? Like, have they gotten sick of Bangkok or Thailand? Or was it just because of other life issues, like something in their personal life or even professional life? So I think this is the key issue. Do people leave for personal reasons, or do they leave for Bangkok reasons?
Interesting. Well, I think that of all the people I've known who have left, most of them have left because of work. But removing that from the equation, of all the people I know who have left as a decision, like they made themselves to leave, I would say most of it is because they have had families and kids, and they just can't afford the school fees here.
Interesting. So that is so in a way that obviously is almost a combination of maybe my question was in a way kind of a false choice. But so in a way,
well, it's kind of a Venn diagram, right? Like it's both getting, that's a personal issue, but it's also, this is bullshit. Bangkok is just way too expensive.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, you've talked about before, and listeners, in case you don't know what Greg's talking about, basically the costs of international school here are pretty high. And so, if you're an expat here and you want your kids to get a proper international education in English, it can cost some dough. So what you're saying is, several people who've left for that reason.
Yeah. Well, let me clarify a bit. Like my kid is going to go to an international school. Now it's a low end international school, but it's still a British curriculum. And it's all taught in English. So there are levels of selection here. So it's not the end all be all, but if you are set on sending your kid to an international school and you send your kid to like one of the top international schools in Bangkok, you're looking at $30,000 a year for grade 1. And it gets more expensive as it goes up.
Yeah. It's not that unusual to pay that for university in the
I
States.
paid less than that for 2 years plus living expenses, film school.
Right. So, but that was a while ago. What I mean is that's not a crazy number for university, but it's pretty crazy if you have to pay that from grade 1 to 12. That's pretty crazy.
Exactly. But I think people see that number and similar numbers that may not be that high, but are close to that, and they're like, no, there's just no way, we're out. But that also opens up an interesting topic as well, which is, I never thought that, because maybe there's a difference in the way those people think about Thailand and the way I do. They maybe think of it as, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Whereas for me, like, this is my home. I'm here. This is where I live. So that option to leave is not really there for me. I don't think about it. It would be an extreme conclusion for me.
That's interesting. I mean, that is like a mindset, but the bottom line is you could leave. So, I mean, I think basically all that really means is you've decided to stay. And, since you've been here a long time, you probably stopped thinking about it that much. And I do remember that I was here for about 10 years where I really felt that each year I was seriously thinking about it.
Really?
So I remember having many conversations with friends or family saying like, I might be coming back next year. And where I really, and it wasn't like I was having any particularly major problems. It's just like, I back then I didn't think I was going to stay. Like I was just like, if someone would have told me, even after 5 years here, if someone would have said, dude, you're going to be here for 20 years, I'll be like, nope, sorry. Like, you don't know me.
right.
But that was
boy, are you wrong.
Yeah. But I think after about 10 years is when I started to wise up and be like, dude, just admit it. You're like a long timer. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if lifer, like I still, maybe I have to be here for more than 20 years before I admit to being a lifer. I'm still not willing to call myself a lifer.
Well, I'd say the second most popular reason that people have left is for their career. Like they've made the decision that they could probably get a better job or advance faster back in their home country, which ties into the discussion that you and I had in a previous episode about whether or not you could be more successful in Thailand than you could back home. So these people, I think, seem to think that they would have a better chance at sort of long-term career prospects if they moved back home. Like they did Thailand. It was fun while it lasted, but they're going to go back home now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, to be honest, I think that's most people. What happens with people who stay is that we just kind of readjust our expectations about how much money we're going to make. And obviously money goes further here than it does back home. So even though I make less than I would back home, I do have more purchasing power than I would have at the same salary. But you definitely make an adjustment. And so I think it sometimes takes people a while to realize they're not going to get rich here. And so I think once they realize, hey, there are actually just fewer economic opportunities, at least after a couple of years, they realize, of course, I'm not, and again, I want to clarify, you could get rich here. I just think there are fewer opportunities than in the States or in Europe or in Canada.
Oh, maybe it was my pessimistic personality, but I never thought I was going to get rich anywhere. So I'm already in that mindset. I might as well be warm while I'm not getting rich.
Well, let me ask you this. I have at least one or two examples of this. Do you know anyone who specifically left with complaints about Thai society or Thai politics? where they were like, I can't take this anymore about Thai society or Thai people or whatever, like and where that has been, at least what they said was the reason they were leaving?
I can't think of any first-hand friends, like first degree friends, but I can think of friends who are they just got tired of the politics, the pollution, the extreme weather, the flooding, the heat, the rain. They just all of that combined. It just sort of got to them, and it overwhelmed them, and they just were like, you know what, I'm out, done. I just can't take this.
Well, in a way, this is a good point, because so you've heard that, but it's actually not the main reason people leave. So what you're basically saying is most people that you can think of are leaving really for kind of professional reasons or the cost of something, which is like a Thai reason, but they're not leaving because God, I'm so sick of Thailand. I'm so sick of Thai people. I'm so sick of Thai culture. That is not a common thing.
No, but I do know a few people who have left Thailand, and these were expat women who left Thailand because they got to the age where they were thinking of settling down, and they came around. They were like, you know what, Bangkok is not the place for an expat woman to sort of like to find love and settle down. It can be done, but it can be done much easier back home.
Yes, hence our expat women episode. Well, anyway, I've got two examples. I actually know two people who I can say left due to complaints about Thailand. The first example, I do have a friend who was upset about the political situation here, and had a couple bad interactions with Thai police where he was searched. And in one case, he was actually kind of forced to give like a pee test, like a urine test on the side of the road. And he was totally humiliated. It's like they basically made him pee into a glass or something and tested his urine for drugs. And even though under Thai law, the police on the side of the street are not supposed to have that power. Like, and I think you should say no if they ask you to do that. Or at least I think they're supposed to do it at the police station. But he kind of felt like he was being harassed, and he just got sick of it, and he left. He probably maybe he had some other things going on in his life as well, but I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, was actually a Thai-related issue. Yeah,
I can see that.
So that's number one. And then I've got another buddy who he had a Thai girlfriend. She ended up getting pregnant. They got married, and he was... That was a big decision point for him, trying to figure out whether he wanted to raise a child in Thailand or go back to the States. And he was going back and forth, and he basically decided, I don't want to raise a child here. And it was not, privately maybe money was a factor, but when I talked to him, he said he really was, it was kind of like, he wanted to make sure his kid got a really proper Western education. He wanted them to be like, he basically said like, yeah, I want my kid to be American. Like, he was like, I don't want my kid to grow up Thai. And so, he has a Thai wife. He had a blast here. He's not a person who is like anti-Thai, or he's not one of those foreigners that's constantly ripping on Thai people. He's not at all. But in the end, he decided he didn't want to raise a kid here. So I guess that is a Thai culture. And he had complaints about Thai culture. Like, he was a little bit worried about his kid's like outlook on life, and he wanted to make sure that his kid was like American. This is an issue that you have, with your son.
It's an ongoing issue. It's a whole other episode, and it ping pongs around in my brain quite often. But my wife is Thai, and for this is a bit off topic, but for me personally, there's very little of my family left in Canada anymore.
Oh, right.
My mom has moved out of the country. My parents are gone. My sister is moving around. So, there's not a lot for me to go back to there.
But that actually is relevant because, like, you're not like worried about your son growing up in Thailand and that somehow he's gonna not be Western enough, or like somehow he's going to become like brainwashed as a Thai person. Like, you're just not worried about that. Like, you think like your influence on him plus the international school, he'll turn out all right, basically.
Fingers crossed. And the ultimate the bottom line is that I have more family here than I do in Canada. They're extended family, my wife and her family and my son, and and it also comes down to my friends like you and all of our mutual friends and some other friends that I have that you
we've
don't
got
know.
a good
Like,
crew.
we've got a great crew, and I've been friends with them longer than I have been friends with my quote best friends in Canada. So I've got a pretty good network here, and if I moved away, I would lose it all, and I just don't want to do that.
Right. Well, let's tie this into the topic then. Maybe the reason people leave then is they don't develop that network that you and I did. So maybe either we got lucky or we did something right. So maybe people who leave, they just don't have that core group of friends that makes it worth staying for.
Right. Maybe you're right. Maybe we got lucky. We made friends with 100 people, and 75 of them left, but the 25 that stayed, we maintained relationships with those people.
Yeah, that's right.
They've become our long-term family.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I've got a third friend, and he left for really a very specific legal reason. So he's someone who has worked a couple different jobs in Thailand. He's had a work permit for a while. He ended up switching jobs, and he was without a work permit, so he had to do the border run thing. And like a lot of people, he was doing border runs for a long time. I don't know all the details, but I think he was doing border runs for close to 2 years, and which was kind of a pain, but he was doing it. Like you did it for many years, right?
Many years.
But then after, I think around the 2-year mark, he was coming back in, or at one point they're just like, hey, we're not going to stamp this anymore. And so as we've talked about on previous shows, that in general, in the last couple of years, they've gotten stricter about the number of times you can go out and come back in.
Yeah, there's a lot more rules around it now than it used to be.
Yeah, so he basically got caught up in that new strictness, and he basically found that in order to live here again, he was going to have to stay out of Thailand for a while. So what he did is he got like an Airbnb in Phnom Penh. So he went to Cambodia where he had some other friends, and he figured at first, I'll just go live in Phnom Penh for 3 months, and then I'll be able to come back into Thailand technically as a tourist, and then I can get back on the border crossing thing. But it turns out that he likes Phnom Penh, and so now he's been there, I think maybe 9 months, and he still plans on coming back. But he basically left due to immigration restrictions and them cracking down on tourists. Basically, the crackdown is on people with tourist visas who turned it into a very long-term stay.
Yeah, I got to say though, I'm kind of siding with Thailand on this one. I think your friend was gaming the system, so maybe he didn't deserve to stay. But
well, in one respect, that's true. But the bottom line is Thailand allowed people to do that for a long time. So it wasn't. If the Thai consulate gives you a stamp, then you're not breaking Thai law. So he wasn't breaking Thai law. And and you and I know many people, and you did it. You did the border runs for like many years without a work permit, right?
I sure did. I wasn't breaking the law, but I was gaming the system.
And I do feel like we're going through a phase now in Thailand where expats are feeling, I think foreigners in Thailand are feeling less welcome than before. What do you think? I feel like there's just more chatter than usual about the Thai government cracking down, and I feel like there's more people I hear online and in person who maybe feel the Thai government is just being harder on foreigners. What do you think?
Interesting. I saw this very question on the Bangkok subreddit the other day when I was browsing there, and it seemed that the overwhelming number of responses were no.
Well, it seems like to maybe try to draw some conclusions here. It seems like although a few people do seem to leave due to problems with Thai culture or Thai politics or maybe Thai people, so you and I have heard of this. I know someone who left for the reason. It seems like the majority of people either leave for like financial reasons, like career related, or the cost of school. I know other people who've left just because their personal life changed. So I had a buddy who left who was engaged to be married, and the engagement fell apart.
Dope.
And he just didn't want to be around anymore.
Fair enough.
So it was like a life event. So it doesn't seem. It sounds like there's not too many like kind of Thailand haters that bail for that reason.
No,
I'm
no.
sure that-
I would say
Yeah.
that the reason that most people leave is for family or career issues. Like
Yes.
Evo, our beloved co-host of season
Of
2.
course.
He left because his son had a baby and he wanted to go home and be grandpa. Another example I have is of one of my friends who had a daughter here with her Thai husband, and the daughter had some developmental disabilities, and there just is not the support structure in place in Thailand for her to be taken care of properly. So she moved back to the UK.
Right.
That's just a necessity.
Practical,
that
like
needs to be done. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Well, this is in a way, when we decided to do this topic of why people leave Thailand, I was a little bit worried. Wow, this is going to be like super negative, But actually, it does seem like there's not most people that leave. Like they're not when they leave, they're not hating on Thailand.
Right.
They leave. They tend to leave. They tend to leave for practical reasons.
And you're right. I mean, if you leave Bangkok, you don't necessarily even have to leave Thailand. Like I have probably I've probably got about 8 or 10 friends and former coworkers who have moved to Chiang Rai and Chiang Mai.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a whole nother thing. And, related to that is, the buddy I mentioned who's in Phnom Penh, he's not my only buddy there. I think I've got 3 former Thai people I met in Thailand who now live in Phnom Penh. Sometimes people maybe just, they're not hating on Thailand, but maybe they're just looking for something new. They want to check out another country.
Right. Or hating on Bangkok. And they're like, you know what? I like Thailand, but I want a bit of a more laid back lifestyle. I want cheaper prices. I want better access to nature. So I'm going to go to Chiang Mai. And that's what a lot of people I know have done. So,
yeah. So maybe that is some possible advice we can give to listeners out there. So if you're someone who is an expat, relatively long term, you're debating about whether now is the time to leave. Well, maybe you should try an in-between thing, like either another Thai city or possibly something like Phnom Penh.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I've heard good things about Phnom Penh. A lot of people are talking about it lately. It's come up a lot in online discussions and with friends of friends, like your friends.
Yeah. So my plan is that at some point I want to interview one or more of my buddies in Phnom Penh, and maybe we'll do a show on comparing Bangkok to Phnom Penh.
The big smackdown, Phnom Penh versus Bangkok.
That's right.
Well, I think you and I are here for the long term, and whether that's for the forever term is another ball of wax.
I'm not ready to say lifer, Greg. Do not call me a lifer. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that.
Well, you've been here almost 20 years. What do you say at 25 years?
I don't know. Maybe at 25 I'll be willing to say lifer. I mean, do you I guess this is a good way to close, Greg. Would you right now on the podcast say that you are a lifer?
Yes, I think I probably would. And I think it helps if you think of your time in Bangkok as a percentage of your overall life. I've spent like 46% of my life in Thailand.
Interesting. Well, since I'm older than you, my percent is actually less, but that's an interesting way to put it. Like certainly once you spent more than half your life here, it's kind of hard not to think of it as home and not to think of it as like a super long-term thing.
Yeah, and I've never thought of Thailand as a temporary posting. This has always been where I am and where I plan to be for the foreseeable future, and that foreseeable future just happens to be stretching out into infinity these days. So, no plans to go anywhere else. So that's what
Well, I'm going to stick to the label long-term expat. I'm not ready to go lifer yet.
All right. Well, I'm a long-term expat bordering on lifer, but we'll see. All right. Well, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us surprises the other one with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept it as just a part of the crazy life of Bangkok. So this week it is my turn. And Ed, what do you think about this? When you go over to a friend's house and they say, oh yeah, we're going to bring some snacks out, have a seat on the floor there. And you sit down and they give you this giant triangle pillow to sit on.
This is excellent. This is a good question, because those triangle pillows I was actually fascinated with when I first moved here. And they seem to be something that I just don't notice anymore. But of course, they're still out there and around. But this exact issue I was fascinated with when I first came here, because I thought those triangle pillows looked really cool. Like, I was just like, wow. I'm like, that's just not, we don't have anything like that. This is very Thai to me, or maybe I don't know if it's an Asian thing. And they look like they should work because there's a triangle and there's an angle there. So it seems like, okay, this would be a good thing to rest on. But I think those things fail. Those things are horrible. There's something about the angle is you have to lean back too far. And I think I consider those things decorative. So like I actually think they look cool. So maybe that's a little bit of a love. Like, I think they look cool. They look cool. They look exotic. But I think they're horrible pillows. I think they're not comfortable at all. So as an actual functional thing, I loathe them.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think they suck. I don't see how they're comfortable at all. They're too small to sort of like curl up and lean against, for me anyway.
And they're kind of hard.
Yeah, and you can't use them as a real pillow because your neck is like a 70-degree angle with your chin pressing against your chest.
That's exactly
so they're not
right.
comfortable
And
that way.
It's funny because I remember the first couple years I was here trying to make those things work. You know, because I'm trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? Or is it supposed to be like a lean? Are you supposed to lean on it? Like, it's because it doesn't seem to be a good headrest. It's not a good lower back support because it angles away from you. And and I could never figure out how to make those things work. Like, functionally, they're horrible.
I've always thought it's having like having a hat with spikes on the inside. Like, what's the point? You're taking the concept of a pillow, which is like a soft place to sort of lay down and comfort your body, and you've made it into a hard, angular piece of Dadaist furniture. Like, what's the point?
I'm with you 100%, except I do actually think they look cool. So if they're serving some decorative purpose, I'm all for it. But they are not comfortable.
Not comfortable. That's a solid loathe from both of us.
Agreed. Okay. So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Zach Smith for letting us his support at the show shout-out level. Greg, what did you find out about Zach?
Well, as it turns out, Zach is new to Bangkok. He's one of these guys that moved here. Maybe he'll end up being a lifer like us, or like me. Maybe a long-term expat like you. I don't know. But he just got here. He left the USA in the rear view, and he came here in search of adventure and new opportunities. And I actually had coffee with Zach a few weeks ago. He's a really great guy, really friendly and really cool. And he amazed me with how much he's done in the short time he's been in Thailand. So when we met, he'd been in Thailand for like 3 weeks or something like this. And check this out. He was taking Thai lessons full time. He had gone to a bunch of networking events. He was looking for work. And I think he had even fired up the old Tinder to test the dating waters in Thailand here. Yeah. And I think back to my first few weeks in Thailand, and they mostly involved getting lost on the BTS, staying at home reading the one book that I had, and that's about it. So I was really impressed that Zach is just like, he hit the Bangkok ground with both feet. Like, he was running when he touched down. And I would like to hire Zach as my own personal motivational coach to get me off my ass, because he's done more in like his first few weeks in Bangkok than I did in like my first year.
More power to him, man. But I've actually been very annoyed by shorter time expats than me who do seem to get a lot done. It's kind of annoying when you meet the guy who's been here 3 years and he speaks Thai fluently.
Yeah, I know. Plus he has a full head of hair and like 6-pack abs. And you're like, oh, get the hell out of here. What are you doing? But Zach is taking all the right steps. And I was talking to him and I was like, man, you're doing everything right. Like, get out there, meet people, learn the language as quickly as you can, dive into the food and the local street scene and just network. And so he's doing it right, man. He's doing Bangkok right.
Good on you, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for the support, man. And we wish you the best of luck. And like I said, if I ever need a pep talk, I might give you a call and say, Zach, I'm feeling a bit down today. Maybe you can help me get out and learn some Thai.
All right. So before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our lovely patrons. As you know, we don't run ads or have sponsors. So we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. If you want to learn more, just head to bangkokpodcast.com/support. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We are very polite, and if you write, we will answer.
Totes my goats. You can also find each episode on YouTube, and you can also follow us online where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thanks a lot for listening, everyone. I will see you back here next week.
See you guys.
Well, some of the other reasons that the same. Man, these beers are really hitting me hard.